Throw me the ball and watch what I do with it.
You are now tuned into the CherryPickin podcast with your host, Andre Cherry.
Hey everyone, it's Andre Cherry, your host of the CherryPickin podcast. I want to thank you for downloading another episode of the show. I'm excited to be on the mic today. We had some late breaking news yesterday on Wednesday, July 21st, in regards to rumors that Texas and Oklahoma want to leave the Big 12 to become members of the SEC. So this broke yesterday. I think it first was reported on Houston Chronicle. Like the Houston Chronicle website had released an article under a paywall that unnamed sources cite Texas and Oklahoma have reached out to the SEC about potentially joining their conference. This has also been confirmed to ESPN, this news that swirled around yesterday. And so, as a result, both Texas and Oklahoma released statements yesterday declining further comments to the media. And here's a quote here from Texas, and I quote, "Speculation always swirls around college athletics. We will not address rumors or speculation," end quote. And then there was a statement that Oklahoma had released, and I quote, "The college athletics landscape is shifting constantly. We don't address every anonymous rumor," end quote. So there was a source that told ESPN that apparently Big 12 athletic directors and administrators are meeting Thursday evening, which is today, to discuss this situation further. And we've had the SEC media days going on this week, and so that was big news yesterday when it broke. Texas A&M athletic director Rosh Bajork said he will be diligent in their approach. Let me read the quote. And I quote, "Diligent in our approach to protect Texas A&M. We want to be the only SEC program in the state of Texas. There's a reason why Texas A&M left the Big 12 to be standalone, to have our own identity," end quote. So Texas A&M is in the SEC, as is Missouri. Missouri is to the SEC as well. And I want to say they moved in 2012. And Missouri, I believe, kind of started this whole realignment within the Big 12. So I think there was speculation that they were going to potentially go to the Big 10, and then they ultimately went to the SEC. Texas A&M followed, and I feel like that kind of sent ripple effects within college football with the realignment that has happened in the past, over a decade or so ago. This would be another seismic shift to the college football landscape if you have Texas and Oklahoma bouncing from the Big 12 to join the SEC. I think, in my honest opinion, I think Texas could be an independent, and you'll see some of those articles online if you're looking, and you'll see it in media. I believe there's a good Yahoo Sports article about that as well. But Texas is such a big brand that they could really do their own thing. They have their own TV network. They don't need to share with anybody else. They can really play whoever they want to, setting up a schedule similar to Notre Dame, even though Notre Dame is within the ACC, or they are allowed to play in the ACC. They've got a unique setup there where they're not necessarily in the ACC, but they play ACC teams. Texas could do a similar setup, and I think they would be successful. I really do. For them to join the SEC, I think it's great. I do think for the brand that the SEC is, I could see Texas in that conference. I think they fit in with the other brands of the SEC. If you're looking at recent history, Texas hasn't really lived up to the hype. They haven't been that powerhouse program that some of us have known Texas to be in the early 2000s and, prior to that. They've been in this period now where they've just kind of been mediocre, where they've kind of just been talked about, but haven't really done anything recently. Not since Mac Brown was the coach. Now he's at UNC, but I just honestly think from a brand perspective, from a business perspective, I think Texas to the SEC makes sense. But from an actual, players on the ground and playing games and having competitions play out, Texas would not be competitive right now in the SEC. I don't think that they're going to be pushing other teams for championships within the SEC in the immediate future. They're barely relevant in the Big 12. I mean, Oklahoma has a reign of terror in the Big 12. If you look at it, I think they've won the last 6 Big 12 championships. So, it doesn't make sense right now for Texas to be entertaining this notion of moving to the SEC, but it's not to say 5 years down the road, Texas, they could truly come back and be back, years from now. And it could be another conversation, or it could look differently, the landscape of the SEC. Nick Saban's not going to be there forever. I feel like Nick Saban, while he could coach forever, I don't know that he's going to be there forever at Alabama, that is. So, Alabama has a reign of terror right now over the SEC. LSU has been competitive, but, for the most part, that's Alabama's conference, and they've just run buckshot over the other teams in the SEC. But that doesn't mean that it's going to stay that way forever. And so if Texas wants to join the SEC, let them do it. If they want to do it, I think it would be a seismic shift to the landscape of college football. The Big 12 would virtually be decimated if Oklahoma and Texas left. But, if they're setting up their future, I think Texas in the SEC makes a lot of sense. I think Oklahoma could be competitive as well. They recruit really well, but I just don't know if these teams are setting themselves up for success right now. And again, this probably it's speculation right now. It's rumors right now. But at some point, this is going to move pretty quickly here. If there's any truth to this statement that they want to entertain coming to the SEC, I think it's going to happen fairly quickly, the series of events that get them into the conference. I believe before Texas can officially make this, Texas and Oklahoma can officially make this known, they're going to have to reach out to the Big 12 conference and inform that conference that they don't want to be in the Big 12 any longer. And then from there, it's just going to be a ripple effect of events after they make it known to the Big 12. I haven't seen anything come out that is official in regards to those intentions, but if it's going to happen, it will probably happen within the next couple of weeks, and it'll be pretty quick and swift. Texas is such a big brand that if they wanted to be independent, I could see that working. But right now, if they're going to join the SEC, I mean, they're not going to be coming out the gates swinging, because in my eyes, they're barely relevant in the Big 12 right now. I mean, they've played well lately, and I say well with air quotes, but they just haven't been dominant, and they're not going to be dominant if they go to the SEC. It is, if they ever expect to get to that level of dominance, it's going to take some time to compete on that level. It truly will. Getting back to the Texas A&M comment, and from the athletic director who is not in favor of Texas coming to the SEC. He's made it known that Texas A&M wanted to be left alone. They left the conference for a reason. The Big 12 it wasn't working out from a financial aspect for those other teams within the conference. Certainly Oklahoma's a big brand. Texas just reigns supreme. They've got this exclusive network, TV network. So for Texas A&M, it made sense for them to leave to go to the SEC. They don't want Texas to come back. They don't want, their little brother to come back into the fold, and they just want to be left alone. I understand that. But in order for this to happen, SEC bylaws regarding conference membership state that a vote of at least 3/4 of the members is required to extend an invitation for membership, or in this case, 11 of the 14 schools. So Texas A&M most certainly will be saying no on that vote, but it's not hard for me to imagine the other teams within the SEC saying yes. I think it'll be pretty easy for Texas and Oklahoma to get an invitation into the SEC. I think it's just a matter of when is this going to happen, if it's going to happen. But Texas A&M has made their intentions quite clear that they don't want Texas to come into the conference. They're going to have to get over that, because if this is true, Texas is coming one way or the other. There was also news that came out of Oklahoma State, and while the reports are unconfirmed, Oklahoma State had already released a statement that said it would be extremely disappointed if the speculation and the rumors were true that Oklahoma was going to leave to go to the SEC. And there's a quote here, and it says, "While we place a premium on history, loyalty, and trust, be assured we will aggressively defend and advance what is best for Oklahoma State and our strong athletic program, which continues to excel in the Big 12 and nationally," the school said in a statement. So there is an obstacle there for such a move to the SEC. Oklahoma and Texas signed the Big 12 Grant of Rights Agreement, in which they granted their first and second tier media rights for football and men's basketball to the conference through June 30th, 2025. So that means the Big 12 would still own those schools' media rights for those sports, even if they are no longer members. And so that will be in place until the agreement expires on June 30th, 2025. So the Big 12's TV contracts with ESPN and Fox also expire in that year, in 2025. And the Longhorn Network's deal with ESPN goes through 2031. So there's some things to consider there from a business side. You know, it's not going to be an easy jump to the SEC, because there's some things that are contractually obligated still to the Big 12. But I don't think that will get in the way of these two teams going to the SEC if what we're reading online and what the Houston Chronicle reported is actually factual. You know, this stuff happens, again, pretty quickly, and it's going to happen one way or another. If these teams reach out to the Big 12, make their intentions known that they don't want to remain in the Big 12, it's just going to be a ripple effect after that. I think Texas could be an independent, and I like them better as an independent, to be honest, because they have such a brand that is huge. You know, they're a blue blood, and it's like they could do this on their own if they wanted to. Does it make much sense for them to be entertaining this right now? I don't know. Like, they're not going to be, and again, it could take years for this to even happen once this moves. But, you know, they're not going to be competitive right out the gate of coming into the SEC. Maybe 5-10 years down the road, we might see them more competitive. I mean, it took Texas A&M a little while to become somewhat relevant in the SEC. They are going to be one of the better teams this season. And so it takes some time. It's not an easy transition to go from one conference to the other. Just ask Nebraska. I mentioned it earlier, but ask them. You know, I honestly thought at the time Nebraska was going to run buckshot all over the Big Ten, and that has not been the case. Nebraska, or the Nebraska I once knew growing up, is not there anymore. They are a shell of themselves. So I'm still waiting for the day Nebraska comes back. But this could make good business sense for Texas and the Texas brand and recruiting if they join the SEC. I think it's a win-win for the SEC. I don't know, again, if it makes much sense right now. If they were to do this in a couple of years, you know, they're not going to be great right out the gate. But Nick Saban's not going to be there forever. The landscape of the SEC is going to change, and maybe Texas will be competitive. I mean, we're all waiting for that. So I just wanted to get on the mic, share my quick initial thoughts on the news that had developed yesterday in regards to these rumors. If it's true, that'll be really interesting to see how things play out. And if it's not, you know, we'll keep on keeping on. But that is huge news. That would be a huge seismic shift to the Big 12. And honestly, if they leave the Big 12, what does that mean for the other teams? Where are they going to go? Are they going to try to keep the Big 12 together and maybe change their name? because there's not 12 teams in the conference right now currently. So I just wonder, like, how will it change? What teams would really want to become in that conference? Like, are there any other teams within the AAC that would go to the Big 12? Or are there any more changes across the board? You know, I'm just really curious to see how this shakes out, and we will all have to wait, watch, and see. With that, thank you all for downloading this quick episode today, and I can't wait to talk to you soon. I hope to release my predictions for the upcoming college football season fairly soon here, but in the meantime, I wanted to release this quick episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and what are your thoughts? Reach out to me, hit me up on Twitter at Cherry_Pickin. I would love to get your thoughts and your opinions on that, because it'll be pretty interesting to see what shakes out. But with that, I will bid you all farewell. Can't wait to talk to you soon. Take care, everybody. Be safe. College football will be back before we know it. It'll be here really, really soon. So thank you all for downloading the episode. Take care, everybody. Peace. Thank you again for tuning into my Cherry Pickin podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to subscribe to my show and drop me a rating on Apple Podcasts. All of my digital content can be found at the website CherryPickinSports.com. And if you are looking to interact with me via social media, my Twitter handle is at Cherry_Pickin. That's Pickin. On my Twitter, you'll also find a link to my blog where I post my weekly college football predictions and analysis. I can also be reached via email at cherrypickinsports@gmail.com. Please feel free to reach out to me regarding what you like about this podcast or about what content you'd like to hear more of on future episodes. I sincerely thank you for your support, and I can't wait to talk to you again soon. Take care.